What's the most ridiculous thing you've had to explain to someone? Write in the comments what you think about this. Enjoy the show. Story 1. On my softball team, I got into a major argument with another girl because she insisted that the Ninja Turtles said "howabunga" instead of "cowabunga." More stupid that some of the other girls agreed with her. I think they others were gaslighting me at that point. Needless to say, I didn't return to play after that season and didn't even show up for the group photo. It was such a stupid argument in the first place. Story 2. I thought of my all-time winner just now. 2 ridiculous things, one person. My brother likes to claim he and a former girlfriend started the Tea Party movement. Morgan Freeman voiceover, they didn't. I mention this for the baseline of his political perspective and those of the women he's been involved with over the years, except for his ex-wife. He's since taken up with another woman, and she's a doozy. The first thing she did was tell me I shouldn't have accepted a couple of cookies from a graduate school classmate who was thanking me for helping her get her groceries up to the 3rd floor while she was on crutches. There was no elevator. Her reasoning? Well, my neighbor was a Muslim, so obviously she had poisoned me and I should go to the emergency room. When I explained that the nice lady had given me the cookies in front of 3 or 4 witnesses, she quoted some Islamophobic crap from my brother as if she was citing a great public intellectual, or maybe one of the world's sacred scriptures. I blocked her. The second thing happened when I was home on a break. It was during the Obama administration, and a Republican attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act was underway because it was a day ending in Y. My brother's girlfriend was opposed to universal health care because she felt it was immoral to take her tax money and spending on treating, Somali gunshot victims who showed up in American emergency rooms after having been shot in Somalia. When I explained it didn't work that way, she said it did too, that it was universal health care, and that means the whole universe. They don't have to be from around here. Morgan Freeman voiceover? She doesn't pay a dime in income taxes, but she cashes those benefit checks for her children. My father asked if she meant people from outer space, and she nodded, as if she was relieved to know we were all aware of what was going on. I excused myself because of a sudden coughing fit, and my brother and his girlfriend didn't come around for several months after that. Story 3. I used to work in phone sales. I had a customer come to me saying their phone wasn't connecting. I pulled up the cellular menu to see their data was turned off. I turned it on and proceeded to get screamed at. "What did you do to my phone?" I calmly replied, "I just turned your data on, and what's that? It's the service you pay for which allows you to use your phone." Customer proceeds to storm off. Story 4. A college-educated woman could not understand that the far side of the moon and the dark side of the moon were not the same thing. She was convinced the far side of the moon was always dark. Nothing I could say would change her mind. No concept of how movement of sun, moon, and earth functioned. Story 5. That there is not an ocean in between Scotland and England. She has lived in Scotland her whole life and genuinely believed you had to get a ferry to cross to England. It gets worse. During the whole Brexit referendum, after it being explained that you can drive from Scotland straight into England, she asked, "If we do leave, does that mean they'll separate us so you need a ferry?" Drilling down, she thought that we'd physically separate the countries with an ocean. Story 6. My friend from my hometown and I were hanging out with this wealthier freshman kid from my university one night. I asked him if he wanted something to drink, and he told us that he's a germaphobe and never drinks from other people's cups because he's afraid we won't wash them thoroughly enough. Boy, unless I'm in a restaurant because they have to make sure their cups are super clean. Friend and I look at each other. Boy, right? Me. Have you ever known anyone who's worked in a restaurant? Boy, no. Friend. I can't speak for every dishwasher, but everyone I've ever known who's worked in a kitchen does the bare minimum to not get fired. Their cups have to look clean, but that doesn't mean they really are. Me. Most likely, I've put more effort into cleaning my personal cups than most dishwashers do for complete strangers they don't care about. Boy, we ruined his life. Story 7. I was working in IT, and we were switching everyone from using Windows laptops to Chromebooks because they were cheaper and easier to manage. In an all-hands meeting, some director made an offhand comment that was like, "These new Chromebooks are nice, they're lightweight, and the battery lasts forever." I guess someone took the "battery lasts forever" claim to heart, because the day after we deployed them to one of the departments, we got a ticket that said, "Laptop doesn't turn on anymore." It had run out of battery. There was nothing wrong with it. When we sent the computer back to the user, they said, "Why do I need to charge it? The battery is supposed to last forever." Story 8. I was briefly a health insurance agent when I was younger. I got into an argument about ACA insurance, Obamacare, with a pro-Trump Republican insurance agent. He said ACA insurance was terrible and should be dismantled because he was trying to help someone get onto it, but it said they weren't eligible with $0 as their income. Well, yeah, duh, that person should be on Medicaid. The ACA is primarily for people who have income but don't make enough to get coverage. My goodness. Story 9. My aunt tried to say that the water they were getting in her area was mixed with sewer water. No, water containing human excrement is considered undrinkable. Drinking nasty poo water is how diseases get passed around. We get water from levees, groundwater, reservoirs, freshwater lakes, and literally anywhere fresh water is available to harvest for treatment. My aunt sat there wide-eyed when I told her this, and I said, we would be finding ways to drink seawater before we'd start drinking sewage. Same aunt that praises me for telling her to ignore her dog's barks for attention instead of just running up and seeing what's wrong. Story 10. I work at a restaurant and one of our most popular desserts is a warm fudge brownie with ice cream on top. With other toppings, of course. We had to prepare 12 of those for a big party. So I asked one of my coworkers if they knew how to make the dessert and if they can help me take them out to the table. They said yes. We were low on some of the items that we needed, so I let them know I was going to grab some more ice cream from back freezer. I was gone for no more than 2 minutes, and upon my return, I see my coworker pulling a plate out of the microwave. Very odd. And all I see is a brownie with melted-ass ice cream, and it was obviously a colossal mess. So they looked at me with the straightest face and said, "Why does it look like that?" I was mind-blown that I had to explain not putting ice cream in the dang microwave. Story 11. Not exactly too ridiculous, but I was trying to explain to a colleague that vinegar is made via fermentation, specifically a double fermentation process. This means that chances are pretty high that there's the tiniest bit of alcohol in your vinegar, but it's so low that even dry countries don't particularly care. But I stopped because I realized partway through that their particular brand of "I don't want alcohol in my life" is so deep that they said, nearly word for word, "I consider any food that has ever touched alcohol to be alcoholic and thus should be removed." I then got careful and poked a few questions and was able to figure out that if I had successfully convinced her on how vinegar was made, she'd have immediately and forever banned all vinegar products from her home. I can't deprive someone of the joys of cooking vinegar, even if it's their own self-imposed limitations. Story 12. I had to explain to a fully grown adult that yes, your car's keyless entry remote does indeed have a battery in it, just like a TV remote. And yes, the button stopped working because the battery is dead and you need to replace it. I also had to tell him that if you're going to buy huge bags of dry dog food and keep it in your garage, which you leave open most of the time, you might want to actually close the bag and maybe even put the closed bag in a container with a lid instead of letting it sit completely open and then always wondering why the dog food is full of bugs, spoils fast, and attracts rats and raccoons. I wish I could say he was a super brilliant engineer or something, but yeah, no. Story 13. A college roommate asked me why we have to pay taxes. When I started by saying to pay for things like roads and schools, she interrupted to say, "We have roads, we have schools." I had a different college roommate deny that the English language has changed over the course of history. When I asked him what the hell he was talking about, he said, "I'm a philosophy major. I've read the works of ancient Greek philosophers and they spoke basically the same way we do now." My mouth hung open for a while on that one. Story 14. In high school, I was at a friend's house. They didn't have toilet paper in the bathroom. I went to grab some, and my BF at the time wouldn't stop making fun of me, saying I need to shit. He thought women only use toilet paper to shit. He openly said that in front of 10 other people. Everyone was in disbelief. How do you not know women use toilet paper after we pee? Story 15. A coworker said that she'd seen a job ad that offered $1 more per hour for bilingual candidates. She complained that it wasn't her fault that she wasn't born in another country. I had to explain to her that employees able to speak more than one language were an asset to the company. It wasn't that they were arbitrarily offering more money to immigrants. They were specifically trying to hire people whose skills were more valuable to them. She had to sleep on it, but the next day she allowed as how that actually made sense. Story 16. I made a comment at an outdoor party that the Weather Channel said there was 50% chance of rain. One of the guys, cocky factory redneck type, i.e. Jon Favreau in the taboo scene in 4 Christmases eating chicken wings, gave me a look like I was stupid and said, "It's always a 50% chance of rain. Either it rains or it doesn't." I thought he was kidding, but the way he said it and looked at me like I was dumb, I knew he wasn't. So I said, "So, if the sky turns dark and we hear thunder and see lightning in the near distance, it's still only 50% rain?" He looked at me deadpan and said, "Either it rains or it doesn't. 50. I gave up. Well, I still think and chuckle about it, but I'm from Indiana, and I noticed that a lot of people around here have that oversimplification type of ignorance. Story 17. I've had people argue with me that ponies are baby horses. A pony is not a baby horse. It's a fully grown horse that happens to be small, typically under 14.3 hands. I am an adult, and I have a horse that is a large pony. I'm short, so it's perfect. Horses are measured in increments of 4 inches, which is about the width of a human hand. Sizes are typically referred to as like 16, 1H16, 2H16, 3H, then 17. A draft horse could be 18 hands, a thoroughbred about 16 hands, a pony is in the range of 10 to 14 hands, and kids typically compete in small, medium, or large pony classes. There are also miniature horses, minis, which are fun to have as pasture pets or companions for other horses. They are not ridden. A foal is a newborn horse, male or female. A yearling is a young horse that is now a year old. Horses in the racing industry all get 1 year older on the first of the year. Unless you know the birth date of your horse, it still holds true. A colt is a young male horse under 4. A filly is a young female. A mare is a mature female horse. A stallion is a fully grown, intact male horse. Unless you are breeding, males are typically gelded or snipped, and then they are called geldings. Story 18. I was in a line with several others at a Barnes & Noble during a very intense windstorm in the early 2000s. The store lost power. The cashier told everyone in line that they would no longer be able to make their purchases due to the loss of power. Customers grumbled. The cashier stated he could not give a valid receipt without the register. One customer stated he would be willing to forego the receipt, and could he just pay by check or exact cash. The cashier stated he would be fine with that, except there would be no way to accurately figure the total with sales tax. So I explained to him how to use a calculator to find the total with sales tax. He completed the purchases for those folks who wanted to do so, staring at me suspiciously the whole time. I kept to myself that I was, at the time, a 5th grade teacher and had just finished teaching a unit on percents and sales tax. Story 19. I had to explain compounding interest to my boss, a director at a large global company. He didn't understand why I was not happy with my raise being awarded as part of next year's bonus versus a salary increase. I had to explain the current value of money/future value of money and how raises previously were a % increase on base salary. So not getting an increase in my base salary this year would affect all future raise in an absolute sense. Story 20. Last year, I stopped at the local fast food with kids after practice. The older boys in front of us are talking about their new jobs after high school. One kid says, he got the construction job. His new boss will teach him how to use all the tools and even read a tape measure. I couldn't help myself and asked if he'd said, read a tape measure? Yes, it's going to be awesome. Didn't you use a ruler in school and learn about the 8 or 16 lines? Well, sure, he tells me. I said, it's exactly the same thing. He nudges his buddy and says, it's way longer than the rulers at school. I got my elementary-aged kids home, pulled out the measuring tape and rulers. Story 21. At my daughter's softball game, one of the other teams arrived early and were practicing in the field behind the bleachers. The coach positioned himself do that when he pitched, and they players get the ball. It flew into the people watching the game happening in front of them, not suspecting getting hit from behind with a ball. After I nearly got hit twice, I refused to give the ball back until they batted the other way into the open field. The coach should have known better. Story 22. I genuinely had to explain to a person high in the property industry who believed they were better than all that their new mobile phone cell phone, back in the days of the Nokia 3210, needed electricity as they contained batteries for the power source, so needs to be charged. After listening to me with increasing frustration and eye-rolling, the person aggressively barked that this wasn't true, telling me with a certain smugness, my cordless phone doesn't need electricity to work. You don't know what you're talking about. I asked if their cordless phone had a stand it sits in. They barked yes at me. I asked if that stand was plugged into the mains. Of course it is. That's what makes the ringing sound, you fucking idiot. I was going to explain the battery situation with their cordless phone, but decided not to due to their behavior, and told them they must be right. I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. A day later, they confronted me, again, in a very aggressive way, telling me I'd made them look like a fool because they'd gone back to the retailer with the mobile cell to complain and had customers laugh and staff smirk when they'd lost their temper listening to them repeat what I'd already said and told them about their cordless phone not needing power. Apparently, it was my fault for not correcting them the day before and allowing them to embarrass themselves in public. I smiled and said I didn't know what they were talking about, being a fucking idiot and all. Story 23, that we couldn't just push those empty tables together for their 20-person reservationless party during a busy weekend brunch. That actually those tables were reserved and the parties would be there soon. But they're empty now. Why can't you just accommodate us? Working in the service industry highlights just how much people who never have don't stop to think about how it works. Story 24. Me ex-mother-in-law said she wanted to visit Japan, but she was afraid because they were communist. I explained she was likely mistaking Japan with China or another Asian country, that Japan was an ally of the U.S. and they were closer to our Western philosophies when it came to government and economy. Her response was, "They're all the same." I said, "Well, you're Peruvian. Do you think it's okay if someone says Peru is the same as Mexico?" And she, of course, replied, "No, because Peru and Mexico are different." Story 25. Do you want to listen to the phone calls I take all day? Oh. Most commonly, I work in a salon at the desk. A conversation goes like this. Client: "Hi, I would like to book a haircut with X on Saturday." Me: "Great. On Saturday, I see that X can see you at 12:30 or at 2 for a haircut." Client: "Nothing earlier?" Me: "They can see you at 12:30 or 2. Story 26. That credit cards are not gift cards and you have to pay back the money. Cutting up your credit card doesn't make you not owe money anymore. Customer spent $5 on gas 3 times during the same billing period. Pointed out how 3 5s equaled 15 by addition and multiplication. Nope. Still didn't get it. He was a carpenter. Had a lawyer call in about repeated late charges and getting bumped up to the penalty rate. Explained that it's a due date, not a due month. Yes, charging interest because it was paid at 2 weeks late is legal. A cardholder agreement is, in fact, a legal contract. It is constitutional. And while President Obama was a lawyer, I highly doubted he would personally order the Supreme Court to rule that his cardholder agreement null and void, much less order the bank to pay him restitution. Story 27. The primary language of Mexico is not Latin, even though it is part of Latin America, and you should be sure of this first before publicly congratulating your Mexican boss's usage of Spanish. Also, it is okay during winter to admit to wearing a fake tan, since no one really cares, and no one will believe the tan came from a fan heater you have under your work desk that has been on all day. Also, Brexit did not mean that the UK was physically leaving Europe, and we could move to more sunnier climes such as near Hawaii. Story 28. Many years ago, I worked in an Italian restaurant where we marinated whole chickens in a thick, herb-heavy mixture. We set these on sheet pans, wrapped bottom shelf of walk-in, as one does. One day, a new health inspector came in and accused me of storing fully cooked chickens on the shelf under the raw beef. A no-no. Asshole, you're a health inspector and you don't know the difference between raw and cooked whole chickens? Ugh. Story 29. Had to explain to an ex that if she, a grown-ass adult woman, breaks up with me, that she can't come back whining at me personally months later that I'm moving on too fast after she's fucked one of my best friends and is already dating someone else. Also had to explain that post-best friend fucking dating someone else, half a year after she dumped me, that she's not still entitled to random rides. And she definitely wasn't entitled to join me on a bros-only trip with my best friend, and absolutely wasn't entitled to have me and my buddy drive an extra 4 hours out of our way to accommodate a drive for her to go see her current boyfriend and drive her back because she couldn't be bothered to get a license. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.